Hello guys, let's talk about scope and closures. These two concepts are really important in the language and it's really crucial for us to understand in order to not make a buggy codes. I'm going to explain them in simplest way so you're really not going to confuse, you're really going to understand them. And also, I'm not going to confuse with you like the lexical environment stuff or lexical scope and things like that. I'm just going to let you to understand the concept because some people call these things are different names and it's really hard to understand what is the true meaning of these things. At least this is my opinion. So what is scope and why we need them? We need scopes because imagine that you have a variables and you define them on the same level. Let's say var x, var y, var z, and you declare them all of them on the same level. End of the day, you're going to mix stuff, and this is why we need the scope. Let's move in the example, and we are going to understand them really well. First of all, the var keyword, when we create a variable with the var, it's a function scope, and the let and const is blocked scope. This is important, and let and const comes with ES6. Imagine we have an index.js, and this is our application. When we define and assign a variable like this, it's going to be on our global scope because this is global. This is the main thing. And whatever inside in here, this is local or the function scope of this function. Think it like a box. This A function has a box like this, okay, like this, and it's this function scope. That's all you have to know. And for this function B, it's like this. It's scope like this. And imagine we passed an argument in there, and this argument is going to be in the function scope, means local, like it's going to live in that function scope level, not outside or something. Let's remove this. The block scope, when we define a variable with the var and this e, if we try to reach the e, because we declare with the var, and the var, since we know its function scope, means we are going to able to access this var from here. But let's say if it was let, we wouldn't able to access this let from here. Only we are able to access from here. About the block scope, even if it's on the global and you define with the let keyword something, and you cannot access this something from here, there is no way for you to able to access this variable. Okay, but let's say we have g variable in here and we have g. Also we have an g variable in here, let's say t. When we try to access g from here, if we do console.log g, just because we are not able to access this because it's block and it's defined with the let keyword, we are going to able to access this because this is what it is. It's on global. This is going to reach this, and this is important. This is about the scope chain thing, because when you think in here, let's say this is defined with the let e. Okay, remove this one so you don't get confused. We let e, we have a variable let e, and we try to access the let e it is going to ask, oh, do I have any E in here in this scope, function scope? Because we are trying to reach E inside the function scope, not inside here. That's why it's going to look in here. So since we define with the let, if it was var, it's going to find it immediately. That's not a problem. But let's assume we have let E, and it's going to make sense now why I'm talking about this example. But it's not going to find here, so it's going to check the up level. So if there is an let E or const E or var E inside here, another E, it will able to reach this one, and it would give this result, not this one. So this is important. So you try to access this, but just because you have in here, you would get this one. You get this, but no, you are reaching this one, and it's happened from the scope chain. Like in JavaScript and in other languages also, whatever you type in your code, the language knows where your code is, where you type, and it understands this var E is related with this, and this function is related with this, and everything you type, the language is know about what you type. It's smart, and this is why it can reach them. It has connection between every single thing that you write. You always have to have this mindset. Even though we have a variable E in here, global E, but not in here, when we try to access from here, and your code is really mess, but somehow you have var E outside somewhere, and you try to access, and you somehow access something else. And this is important to understand. I think this is clear. So I'm going to briefly talk about the model scope. I'm just explaining my idea about this because I don't want to give you the wrong information. I'm not sure if I understand this model scope real well, but I'm going to explain with my experience. Imagine that we have a model map 1 and model map 2. These things called model if you import them from one another. And imagine this is our main. So whatever you type in here, in reality, it's global of this model, but when you export it, it can become a model scope. So this is a model scope. So if you export this from this model to here, the main one, like that, for instance, you do these things in React mostly and in some other libraries. These things are going to be on global now because this is your main. We said this is our main application, and this is what it's called model scope and global scope. Let's move the closures. So what is closure and why we have to know about it? The closure is when you have two different functions, and this is the inner function. The inner function has ability to access whatever in the parent scope. So whatever variable you have in here, A, B, C, D, whatever, this function, this inner, is able to memorize them. No matter what, this function has ability to access it and remember them, and this is why it's called closure. This concept is closure, and it's able because of lexical scope, what they call. But we don't have to confuse with these things. So this is what it is, the closure. This function has ability to whatever you type in here. and also in here, by the way. So the outer, wherever outer is, this function able to access them. We are going to give examples, don't worry about that. So let's comment this. Let's talk about this example and we are going to understand better. Imagine that we have a child and a parent and a grandparent, and this child, pouring the milk on the table just because child does these things, and the child goes to parent, hey, mommy, I poured the milk, can you give me the napkin? It's like that. So this child asking for a napkin and the parent is saying, oh darling, okay, take it, it's not a problem, and the child takes it. Also, child can talk with its grandparent and say, hey grandmama, I need your money, can you just give me a bit of money? And grandmama can say, hey, yeah, okay, yeah, you can just take this amount of money, and it can take the money. Also, the child, if it's impish, it can override the money, like money is not anymore a money, it's a paper. So if it does this, this means the child played with the money and it's changed to paper. So it's not anymore a money. Child can do this if it wants. So with this, the child able to change the real money to the paper. And this is something bad, of course. But the idea is that the child able to change things around that is outer of the child. Let's talk with this with the example. Imagine that we have two functions. And this is the parent, this is the child. What we do is we declare a variable and it's just AA, and we have a function, and let's assume we don't have this at first. What this function does, it overrides it. It says A equal to this, and this A, since it's not in the scope, it tries to find, oh, I don't have any A, so what is the A? And it asks the upper level, and oh, I see an A, and this A is AA, but I want to change it, just in here when we change the money to paper from the to upper, and we are doing the same in here. We change the let A to something else, and we are log the new value that we assigned. And when you think about this code, there is no way for us to running this. If you run this function, it's just going to run this, and it's going to declare this variable in its mind in the scope, but we're not running. And this is why we return this function, in order to able to access it, because if we don't able to access it, how we are going to control it? This is why we return this. We return this function, but we are not running it. We just return it. We can return anything, by the way. We can return a string if we want, or anything that we want, but in here we return a function. Also, we can return an object that has a key value pair, and this, let's say, run function, I say the property name, and I give it to change it function. If I do this, this object has a key value property, and it is the change it function. We can do this also if we want, but we just keep it simple, and we return this function for now. And then we say, okay, const change function is one-time function, and we invoke it. What's happened when we invoke it? It's going to run it. It's going to run this, and it's going to run this. I mean, excuse me, it's not running this. It just returned this. Apologize. It just returned this. We still didn't run this. But in this change function, we have this. Why? Because we return it. That's simple. But we're not invoking it. We just return it. If you notice why we call this one time, we are running just once, and this code only runs once. We didn't run twice this. When we enable this change function, remember we said it's this. So we are now running this. We're not running this anymore. Like, this has nothing to do with this now. I mean, we are running this function. When we run this function, as you can see, this function is just this, not all of them. So the thing is that we said above also, this function has able to know, memorize these things. If we just console log, if you had console log a in here, it would able to call this. Let's go in this way first. We call this, we refresh, and let's comment this to not distract anyone. Let's refresh. As you can see, we're just calling a, but it's a, oh, I don't have any a. Do I have any a outer? Yes, I have, because when this created, it's going to memorize whatever outer of it is. And the outer has let a. This is why it can understand it. This is all. So back to our code. Now when we save and when we refresh, we are updating the a, we changing it. And after changing, we change the update a and we log it. This is why we get this log, because we are able to change it, and it's going to be changed for forever. Like, it's not a copy or something. Literally, we are changing this inside here without touching or running this, and this is important. And this is powerful. This is not something simple to do. It's really powerful. Let's check another example. This example is just the same idea, but to understand it better. We have still the same function name, and we have another function inside, and we return this function. But in here, we are declaring at the global level any variable, a variable that calls keyboard, and we change it inside this function. We are able to do this, remember, because this function, when it's get created, it has access wherever outside. So it's not only one div, it's even, it can be 20, like 20 upper, I don't know how to explain, but imagine that you have 20 functions inside each other, like function, like this and like this. I know it sounds crazy, but this person has access to even in here, and this is because of scope chain. Like I said, it's whatever you type in your application, it has relation with each other, and it knows any variable that is in your application, where it resides, and what is this connection between each other, and how it's run, and anything that you can imagine. And this is why we can access it. In here, we are accessing this one and we change it to mouse and we are logging in. Let's see. Refresh. Oh, we didn't run it. We do this and change. We are storing this function. I'm not going to explain them because I think you got it. And before we run keyboard, let's see, we have keyboard value and this is from here. It's a global, and then we change it, and then just because we changed to mouse and now it's mouse. Also, you can pass arguments. If you change argument like anything and you want to this be anything that you define, not just mouse. Now if you do in here, just because we can pass, you know, this is this and we can pass anything. So I want this to be headset. Now we change this to headset, and let's also comment this and save and refresh. Now it's console log, this one, and then we change it to headset because we pass in here our argument, and since we said it's headset, it's overridden and it's logged. And if you notice that we said we are literally changing the keyboard variable name entirely when we override it, and we said it's not a copy, it's just literally that value that we override. This is because when we console log in here, we get the headset, not the old one, because we change it inside here. And like I said, this concept is really important and powerful, so we shouldn't underestimate it. Let's move to another example. When we check this example, as you can see, this is a function and there is another function inside, and we return an object. I'll show you later. But this example and the above also, the goal is to keep these things our secret, means not accessible, but we can do and change them with the things that we defined, just the way we desire, but nobody can access them and manually change them. And this is we can accomplish with the closure. Let's see what we're doing in here. In this function, we say change the secret to anything that we pass, and we assign to anything and we log it. I mean, the reason we doing it like this, because if we override it, we're not able to see the old value. Also, we can do like var old secret key to equal secret key, and then we could do this. It's the same, but just to keep it clear, like simple, I did in the other way. We can do like this also, it doesn't matter. Let's check this one. We change the secret whatever we pass, because we pass in here to here, and this is the object which has property name and the function assigned. And same for here. We have options to change things in here, and this is the whole idea, and this is powerful. This is important because these functions remember these things because of lexical scope, because of closure, and these things are just simple things that add the money in here and console log. You know, subtract the money and console log, and you take all your money from the account in here. So when we run the function, this function, it's going to return this, and we have an object. So in that object, we can access the properties. This is a property. So we can invoke this property because it is a function. And if we save, we refresh, we get current money amount is 100 because it was what? It was 100. And this is, remember, it has access to live version of this all the time, like we mentioned. So I increase 100 also, and I will go to log it again. If I save, if I refresh, it was 100, now it's 200, and now, actually I also inform here, I forget this, but you can see that we are getting the updated version. If I remove this and t.decrease to 25, if I save, refresh, you can see it decrease. This is the whole point. Let's change with this. If we do this, remember it was the special, and now we want it to be non-special. We passing the argument because we are able to do this. You see, this is a function that takes an argument and it passes this argument into what? Into this. And the reason that this able to access this is about the closure, because what we say, whatever inside in here, when it creates, it's going to able to access outer, and it's just not about the variable, it is also about the function. If we had another function in here, dummy function, and if it has hello from dummy function, now if you log it later I show, but just focus on here for now, then we will log it, save. Now we are working in here, refresh. Let me just take this, refresh. So special key changed from special to non-special because old secret key was the special, and now it's anything that we defined which is non-special, because we pass in here non-special from here. If we do this, save, refresh, it's going to be like this. I think you got the idea. But if you do like this, console.log about the dummy function, oh sorry, not console.log, because we are already logging it, just invoking it, this function is going to able to access this because of the closure, because you got the idea. You refresh and hello from dummy. You can do as much as you want. And this is the whole idea about the scope and the closure. I hope this was really helpful for you to understand it better. If it is, please don't forget to support. Thank you.